You are now tuning into Youth Voices Amplified, a podcast production from the Community Enrichment Project, a youth civic engagement nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Today's episode, Church and State, was hosted by me, Lauren Grimes, and coordinated in conjunction with youth from New Image Community Baptist Church, also located in Washington, D.C. In honor of National Week of Conversation, organized by the National Conversation Project, we discuss connections and separations between church and state from youth perspectives. If you'd like to comment or connect with our youth, reach out to us at info@thecepdc.com or on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at THECEPDC. Thanks for listening.
Romans 13:1. The title in my study Bible, it says Submission to the Authorities. And we're just going to read verse 1. So can I get a reader? Okay. What version of the Bible? Until you read King James. What version of the Bible?
King James.
Very good. All right.
Right now? Okay. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God.
Okay. Very good. Does anybody have a different version of the... Okay. Would you read yours, please, Elijah?
Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God.
Thank you. So that's one verse of scripture talking about submission to authorities. Somebody explain that. Break that.
Today, you won't win the battle. Like you won't win. Like, I just feel like that's what it is. Because you can argue back and forth with a teacher, but at the end of the day, they can be the one that still has the higher authority and can still control, like, the consequence or the outcome or whatever, I guess. So.
Very good insight. Very good insight. So we have national authority, the president of the United States. We have teachers and people in the school system that is the authority when you're at the schoolhouse. Where else can you go and be under somebody else's authority? Where else can you? And your house. Okay. Who would be an authority in your house?
Like your parents.
Your parents. Yes. Very good. So speak to that. How are you submitted to that authority no matter what? I mean, you're a teenager now, so how does that work?
Like when you turn 18, until you get out in the real world, you still have to respect, the rules under their house because it's their house. Once you're out in the real world, it's something different.
Okay. So I'm getting the sense that we do understand what authority is. Yeah. Authority exists almost everywhere we are. What would the world be like if we didn't have authority in the earth?
The same way. I feel like it would be a little different, but to be honest, like people act like they don't have authority anyways. And it's like, sometimes like people try to act like now all the police shootings and things, you see like people just don't even want to listen to the police no more. But back in the day, they would have smacked you over your head a couple times because you weren't listening. So like now people are like, oh, because he got shot, that means that I can, protest or something. Because you weren't allowed to protest in some places. So like the authority of the police or like teacher or something, you want to protest it. Sometimes you shouldn't be. There's like a time and place. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, very good. So imagine no traffic lights.
Stop signs.
No stop signs. Imagine if you could get a license to drive at 5. I mean, just imagine, right? Just imagine if you could get if the system was set up in such a way that you could become a doctor without going through all the process.
Right, but I don't know. I kind of look at that differently than if the world didn't have any authority. I mean, I can see that if the world didn't have any authority, I can see the chaotic side, but I can also see the peaceful side as well.
Without authority, you could see peace. How?
Because I think that it's more of a matter of like Okay, like for instance, we have like authority now. Like with authority comes rules or laws or things that you have to subject to and you have to be submissive to, and that's I feel like is one of the reasons which causes a lot of rebellion these days. And it's kind of funny because we were talking about that in class at school in one of my classes, and that can cause a lot of rebellion when you have so many rules. It causes people to want to break them. So if they have the rules, then maybe there wouldn't be any rules to break. But I can still see that it could be chaotic even in that type of situation. But
interesting.
So like, I'm not sure if you remember. I think it was just called like when that kid died because he got shot, or like they threw him in the van too hard and he like broke his leg. I didn't get his name. Remember that?
Freddie.
Yeah, it was like Freddie. Freddie Graham. Yeah. So like. Remember, like, right after that, people got real mad and they just started, like, protesting and all that, and they had to bring tanks and all that. Imagine if, like, they just started protesting and, like, there were no cops. There were just no army or anything. They just, you just got people running on the street, breaking stuff and setting stuff on fire. Like, that's the chaotic side, but then there's the Martin Luther King side of, like, they're walking on the street with signs. So there's like two sides. I can see what she's saying. There's two sides. There's, like, half. It probably won't even be half and half. It might be 75% violent and 25% peaceful. You never know.
Okay. Now we're gonna move on. We're gonna go to Titus. We're gonna read that one, those two verses, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Lauren. And can we?
Titus what?
Titus chapter 3. Because Michonne made a good point of. Already, she brought up the fact that if we didn't have any rules, if we didn't have the authority, it could be a peaceful place.
But
so let's see.
Most likely not.
Oh, okay, well, you said it's possible.
Yeah.
So let's read what Titus says, verses 1 and 2, and that the subtitle for this particular chapter is "Doing What Is Good." Right living in society. Doing what is good. Johnny, you want to read? Oh, you're still looking.
What chapter?
Chapter 3, Titus chapter 3.
Right before after 2 Timothy.
It's after Timothy.
You can go to the table of contents. It's okay. It's okay. It really is. I go to it sometimes. Chapter 3.
Those like,
We're discussing someone's hair decorations at the moment. It's very pretty. We wanted to know where did it originate? Africa. Okay. I'm gonna get me.
It probably did.
Yeah, it did. Michonne, would you read Titus 3, 1 and 2, please?
Okay. Remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility to all men. That's the word, peaceable.
Mm-hmm. So imagine, when I heard this, it's talking about, still talking about rules. Well, it starts off telling us to be subject to the rulers and people in positions of authority. But I think about community. When I read this, I thought about community. To do good, to slander no one, to be peaceable, able to have peace and considerate, and to show true humility toward all men. Just imagine if you lived in a neighborhood and everybody was following that. That's peace.
What do they mean when they say show humility to all?
To be humble. To just be a humble person, not arrogant, not conceited and vain, but to be selfless and not selfish, thinking of other people, being respectful and considerate towards other people. That is to be humble. What did you have a different version?
Yeah. Put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good work, to speak evil of no man, to be no brawlers, but gentle, showing all meekness unto all men.
What do you think, Janiyah? Is that the world you live in? No. Any some of it, some of the time.
Yeah. Some people, well, like at school, I don't. It's weird because I come from a school where I was with all these black kids, and now I'm in a school where it's like predominantly white, and so everybody is just like it's just different.
Explain that to us, because everybody doesn't go to a school with predominantly white.
Everybody's just so happy and friendly, and it's like
wow.
And it's just weird, because coming from a school where, like, I see fights down the hallway, like, every day, everybody walking around mad, and all this stuff. It's just kind of weird.
Then, how many, we're going to switch, but how many kids are in your school? Do you know the population?
It's not a lot, because there's, like, 63 kids in my grade.
Oh, in your grade.
Well, that's another socioeconomic status. That's a big word, but that's another issue.
That's a whole nother. We could do a whole nother podcast just talking about what you are experiencing. We might do that, but thank you for bringing that to the forefront. We in Titus 3. So we talked about authority. God placed authority in the earth for our protection. We talked about being subject to authority, and we just read how, to me, it's speaking to community. Lauren mentioned the word community, that we would do good to one another, that we wouldn't slander, keep your mouth off of people, right? If you're not going to say something good, my grandmother used to say, if you're not going to say something good, don't say nothing, right? If we lived in a community like that, Ward 7, Ward 8, up northwest where you go to school, Silver Spring, well, you live in Silver Spring, so that might be a little bit. You might could equate with what Janiyah is talking about. But if more people felt like this, but like Elijah's saying, I mean, we have some people that are angry, frustrated, disappointed with the administration and other things in life, and some people are not. That's not where they are. Their mindset is not to do good towards others or to be humble people. We got road rage now. Road rage, that's just another symptom. People, well, we won't go down there. We'll move on. Now we're gonna move on. So Lauren has some questions. Lauren has questions, and so however she's gonna do it, put the questions on the table for you all to respond to. But keep in mind, number one, who we are. We are all Christians, right? And the Bible is this is where we get our instructions for how to live. This is where we get our guidance from. We are in the world, and so we have to determine, are we going to do it the way, are we going to be Christ-like, or are we going to be like the world? That's the dilemma for us sometimes, because sometimes you could be in those situations and you got to do what you got to do. And maybe it's not so Christ-like, but you got to do what you got to do. And then there's other moments where, boom, you're going to do it like Jesus would do it. WWJD. What would Jesus do? So when you answer these questions, think about godliness. Think about being young men and young women of good integrity, good character. The things that we're trying to instill in you guys, because you all are being prepared for life. This is your boot camp. All right. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator.
Okay. So I have like some general questions and then some specific examples about things that are going on in the world today. And if you guys think of anything, just feel free to share it. So the first question I had was, in America, is religion connected to politics in any way? You can say yes or no, but give an example. So do you feel like religion is connected to politics in any way at all?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, and before I guess you answer, I just want to premise that with, have you guys heard the term like separation of church and state? Yeah. Okay, but you can go ahead with your response.
I mean, religion and politics, I ain't gonna say that they go hand in hand together, but they are connected because yeah, don't you gotta swear to where you gotta make an oath and you gotta put your hand on the Bible in order to be a president? So,
Sure.
That's kind of connected.
Right. Okay, so that's a concrete example, right? Anybody have any other examples of how religion is connected to politics in America, in the U.S., or in the world, even?
I was going to say that, but on the dollar bill, it say "in God we trust."
It sure does. It sure does. And even if somebody doesn't believe in religion, I know they still like money, right? Yeah.
Like when you first join I think it's with the military, they have main, like, that's all they stress going to the chaplain. Like, they have specific jobs. Like, you can get paid a lot of money to be a chaplain. So, like,
within the military.
Yeah, so, like, Navy chaplain, like, whatever you are, you, like, people like you. You're a chaplain. You're, like, the popular kid at school.
Anybody have another example? Or anybody believe that religion is not connected to politics? Because we say that there's supposed to be a separation between church and state, but is that a real thing, or is that just what people say? I mean, it seems like it's a lot of crossover, but maybe you can think in the opposite direction. Like, do you have an example of how church was not allowed to interfere with politics in some way? Yeah.
I remember I went on this field trip at school to St. Mary's County, and they literally have, like, I think it's a court. It's something to do with law, and so this big line. It's like this big. I think it's like crops or something. This big line between crops, and it's like this like building that represents law, and the church is like miles away. But like that's the line dividing the church and the law. And they said that has something to do with it.
Yeah. So there are some federal agencies and buildings. They'll try to do stuff like that. Say if there was a cross that was erected in front of the church, in front of the court years ago or something like that. In recent generations, somebody will protest and then they'll have to take it down. I don't know if you guys watch like Law and Order and those kind of shows. And when you are about to take the stand, what do they make you do before you take the stand?
Swear on the Bible.
You have to swear on the Bible. But did you know that you don't have to necessarily swear on the Bible? You could ask for a Quran or something else, depending on what your religion is. So there are times where, I mean, most people don't know, because you mentioned the oath too, right? I can't imagine a president going up there and doing anything, or president-elect going up and doing anything but swearing on the Bible. But, there are those spaces where you can't interject and say, hey, I don't agree with this. I remember once I went to a school. I was substituting at a school, and the teacher had the kids pray before they ate breakfast. And now that's not necessarily politics per se, but that's a part of the public education system, which is, run by the federal government, so it's still connected in that way. And I don't know, I don't think the parents probably were aware. I personally didn't have a problem with it, but it's just interesting how we say separation of state, church and state. You guys are taught that in school. I was taught that in school. But then you see in real life, it's so much gray area, right? So that was like a generic question, but I'm gonna ask you some specific ones. So, anybody know what's happening in November? Happy birthday, girl! That's special. Anything else happening on the national level? Yes. So we'll have our general election, midterm elections in November. Y'all know what midterm elections are?
I forget. It's like the halfway.
Halfway point between what?
Between the president getting in and getting out.
So we vote for a president every how many years?
3.
2. 4.
Come on now, yo. 4 years. 4 years. Right, so every 4 years we vote for president, but in between that, a lot of people don't always pay much attention, but we have midterm elections, so they happen every 2 years. So I live in D.C. I'm not sure about Maryland and VA and who will be on the docket to for voters to vote in or out in November. But in DC, our mayor will be on the ballot. Some of our council members, that's like, the people that run our DC government, they'll be on the ballot. Some really local level officials, they're called ANC commissioners, they'll be on the ballot. And then the folks that represent us in Congress, even though we don't really truly have representation in Congress, their positions will be up too. So with all this talk about people being distraught about the president that we have now, people are really getting fired up about midterm elections. And I mean, I'm fairly young. I don't remember seeing it like this before. It's even a lot of young people that are trying to encourage their parents to go out and vote, or their teachers, people in their communities, because they might not have a right at this point. But you have young people that are still involved in it, all the way up to people that can actually go out and vote. But my question to you is, when we are looking at these elections, whether they're local, midterm, or like our every 4-year elections, should we consider a candidate's religion when we decide whether we want to support them or not?
That's hard. Because I feel like that's hard because you can't necessarily say, like, yes to that question, but you can't say no. Like, you can go ahead, but I was just saying, like, because if we had a president that wanted to run, but they were, say, for instance, what is it? The ones that wear the Muslim. Yeah, if they were Muslim, a lot of people don't really support it because of the terrorist attacks and stuff like that. So that's kind of like racism or discrimination. So I don't know.
So you're saying you could look at religion, but then that might bring in other social factors, social political factors that may not be fair when you're trying to assess a candidate.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So like, I'm not sure if you know, but like they were saying that Obama was Muslim and stuff like that, and they were saying like he was messing up with the war because he didn't want to like stuff like that, little tiny stuff. But, like if you really look at it, like to be honest, like we're all like trying to do like you're in presidency for a purpose. So like if your religion runs over to the point where like you're like out there, I don't know how to say it like respectfully, but kind of like when your religion runs over to the point where like you're just out here like like all you wear is crosses and like you're just walking around with a cross coat, what I'm saying, like
so like an extremist
almost like that, like like if my president was Christian, if my president was Muslim, I wouldn't care as long as they're supporting the common good for the people.
That's a good point.
I just feel like your religion shouldn't be based on who you are as a person. So.
He didn't say he was.
So if I guess another question to ask is, what kind of criteria would you look for then in a person that you would want to support? Because for some people, religion is a big thing. The textbook definition for like a conservative, or Republican, they would be the type of person that would consider somebody's religion heavily. But I argue that liberals would do the same thing, moderates, everybody in between, right? So, because it depends on you personally, I think, more so than what political party that you're with. But what other criteria would you be looking at that's connected to morality in some way? Say, like with our current president, he won't release his tax returns. What if people feel like he's trying to hide something, like he mismanaged money or he stole money or he, in fact, did not pay any taxes? Does that show something about his personality? Like, does he have bad morals that don't match up with your personal morals or your Christian morals?
Oh, you want to answer that?
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just thinking of other things that you would consider when you're looking at a candidate. It might not be religion per se, but it could be good versus bad in the sense of, is this person moral?
So you're mostly saying like background information on a person. Like you might not care about gender or race, but you might care about their past, different things in their past. That's like what's the name of the case now? That's trying to be
the judge.
Yeah, like something like that. Like tell me something about your background information so that I know what you did in your past. to make me feel like I should support you, but then again, should not support you.
Okay, because I was going to bring up Judge Kavanaugh. That's what you're talking about right now. That was going to be my second concrete example. So, what do you guys know about Judge Kavanaugh? You know anything more that you want to share?
Aren't there allegations against him? Someone put an allegation against him?
Well, who is he and why are we even talking about him right now?
Oh, he's being investigated. He's a judge, right?
He's a judge.
He's going to be a part of the Supreme Court.
So he was nominated by the president and his administration to be added to the Supreme Court. So, do you guys know how many justices we have on the Supreme Court? They're not called judges; they're called justices.
7.
We got 8.
It has to be uneven. It has to be uneven.
There we go. It has to be uneven. Very good. Why does it have to be uneven?
Because if 5 vote, you can't get it.
So you want to be able to break a tie if you need to, right? So we have 9. There you go. So there are 9 slots on our U.S. Supreme Court. Right now there are only 8 filled because recently we had one Scalia who passed away. So we have to fill that void. There was some stuff going on with our previous administration. Former President Obama was trying to put someone in the Supreme Court. There was a lot of pushback. And so now we are up for this task again to elect someone to the Supreme Court. So the president has nominated Judge Kavanaugh. So why is that important? Obviously, it's important because we need, a tiebreaker. We need a 9th person in our Supreme Court to have it be fully functioning. But why do we care about his past?
To see, like, if he really cares about, like our community, like our state and stuff.
Yeah. So we wanna look at his background and see if
basically his trust, basically.
If we can trust him.
Yeah.
Okay. So to determine whether or not we can trust him, you and then you can go. Go ahead.
It's also depending on their background, they'll have certain biases about how how if you had a judge that say if they used to drink, they used to do a lot of things, and they just in their high school years they used to drink, and they're just supported, and say it was still prohibition times, they supported that, so so somebody comes in for drinking, they're gonna be a little bit lighter on the case than somebody who came in for I forget driving, just being crazy while driving. It's gonna be a bias, or if they have something against women, like Kavanaugh. I'm not saying he does, just saying that if he did, he would be a bias towards men, maybe, than women. You never know. So it has to be fair.
So trust and bias, so that kind of fits in together. We want to be able to trust the decisions he's making on behalf of the United States, and we want to make sure when he's making decisions that he doesn't have any kind of biases. I think that's a really good point. What were you going to say?
I also think, I don't know what word correctly phrases what I'm trying to say, but also his the criminal background, where he's come from, because if he's done past crimes against people or against stuff, if he's done past crimes, then he has no business up there he deserves to do his time just like he's trying to make everyone else do as a judge.
Well, okay, let's take it back to the Bible. I think Jesus, God, is a very we serve a very forgiving God. So, I mean, what if he did do something wrong in the past? And what if he actually admitted to it? Then should we possibly forgive him of his transgressions? And it doesn't have to be Kavanaugh specifically, but anybody.
I feel like that's when it comes into state, a separation between state and religion, though. Because we, as Christians, would, forgive him after we get past our human ways. We would forgive after we get past our human ways, but if it comes into the fact of the state, and then, you have all of society, I feel like that's when it comes into the fact that you have to separate them.
So, church might be a little forgiving, but state not so much. Because we have to be possibly a little more critical with the decisions we make on behalf of America.
But you can forgive and not vote for them.
Yeah, but I guess you're not saying don't forgive at all, but forgiving in a sense that you would transfer your forgiveness into a vote. I forgive you and I'm going to vote for you. You saying you wouldn't necessarily do that if somebody did something really egregious?
Yeah, I mean, I would forgive the person, but
you won't forget.
yeah, but that don't mean I'm gonna vote for you and want you in this path.
Okay.
It's like with Bill Cosby, like they got like I wouldn't be surprised if Kavanaugh gets like a $20,000 fine, walks away, doesn't get a day in prison. And I see a race thing with it, but some people might not. What I'm just saying is, like, you know, they didn't really forgive Mr. Cosby, so why should Mr. Kavanaugh get forgiven? To be honest, he did. I mean, I'm not going to pretend and say here like Bill Cosby didn't do anything wrong, but I'm also not going to say that Mr. Kavanaugh got out free. So he didn't do anything wrong because, like, you know, even though it was 36 years ago, like, they say anything to catch up with you. Like, not that I believe in karma.
Well, that's fair. You want to add something? Anybody else had anything? No? Okay. So let's just continue the conversation and just jump in when you can. But as Christians, I kind of mentioned before, we have moral and ethical responsibilities when we interact with other people and when we just carry out our daily lives, right? So in terms of our responsibilities, how does that affect what we do politically? Like, for example, voting. Do you think as a Christian you have a responsibility to vote? As a Christian, do you have a responsibility to hold your elected officials accountable for the things they do and don't do? Like, say Kavanaugh gets elected to the Supreme Court, but then he says that he's going to be unbiased and he's going to be fair and trustworthy. But then he turns around and does something the opposite. So as a Christian, do you think you have a responsibility to vote?
I wouldn't say that you had a responsibility to vote, but if you are going to vote, you should look into what religion or whatever, whoever you're voting for. Because, that should play a big role, because sometimes certain people, it's like part of their religion, so they see certain stuff as right and certain stuff as wrong. So, whoever you vote for, you should check into what religion or how they carry things.
Mm-hmm. So, because that's a little bit of what we were talking about before. Some people were saying religion shouldn't be considered when we're selecting somebody that we want to support, and some people were saying the opposite. But you're saying that your religion is connected to how you think about the world, like your personal frame of mind, and it determines where your moral standards are.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, that's another way to think about it, because even if you aren't religious, most people know right from wrong, or, and I'm using air quotes, or they have an idea about what morality looks like. I had a question, I forgot what it was. Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to admit I'm very, very, very racially biased. Like, when it comes to, like voting for, like, even for the student government, when we voted last year, like, the girl was Muslim. Like, she was the only black person on the ballot, so I pressed the button. I just wanted to see a fellow face, and she won. She won. Because I just like seeing, like when Obama, like, you know, he's the only black, he is the only black person that has ever, you know, like, I would have voted for him because he's black, and also because he seems like a good person. Like, I would vote for a black person unless they're, like, you know, really, really, really bad. So, you know, that's just me.
I think that was an honest response about, and it's it is reflected in the data that we have on voting patterns and voting behaviors. So that makes a lot of sense. So you made me think of a question to ask you guys. This doesn't have anything to do with politics, but outside of church, if somebody saw you on the street, would they know you were a Christian? You don't think so? Why? Because you don't wear a cross?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just... Someone else gonna know.
Because nobody asked if I was a Christian.
So somebody has to ask for them to know?
It's not that. It's just like, there's, like, I don't want to walk around, like, wearing, like, a robe. Like, I ain't trying to be in my sandals, water walker too. It's like, nah, I just want to, like, be me, like, yeah, I'm a Christian. Like, if you walk up to me and be like, hey, man, like, you got something to help me, I'd be like, oh, I can hand you a Jesus pamphlet. Like, something like that. Just, like, I would, like, they don't have to ask for it necessarily, but at the same time, I don't want to, like, run up with my Jesus shirt, like, hey, you want to come on to church? Like, it's one of those things where, like, the person has to kind of initiate it for the Jesus exchanger to go on. Mm-hmm. So if they want it, they can come get it, type of thing. But, like,
you're available if they want.
I'm just saying. Like,
that was another very honest answer, but I think sometimes people are missing the point with that, because you don't have to wear "I love Jesus" t-shirt every day for people to know that you're a Christian. It's all in your walk, right? So if you follow positive moral standards and you're pretty ethical, like, you're not on the train going home from school cursing people out, acting crazy, then that's just one example because I've seen it a lot of times. But if you really walking a walk as best you can as a human on this earth, then people can see something different in you. So I want to take that back to like our political officials. What if, and I don't really know what President Trump has said about his religious background, but I think he may have said he's Christian or something like that. He's Catholic. That's what I thought. Does he seem like a Catholic to you?
The words that come out his mouth and the way he presents himself, you know that he was
aren't Catholics like really heavy? Like they,
but you realize that half the words never actually come out of his mouth; they come out of his fingertips.
Same thing.
Was that a joke?
No, I'm serious. So like he doesn't like he's just not very. He's one of those like people who like say more on like I'll go up to me, hey Miss Sean, then turn around and start texting about her on Twitter, like
fake. Oh, you talking about that? I was just talking about speech-wise. Like,
oh no, I'm talking about like he's like one of the people that just don't like. He'll walk up there.
He's not that articulate.
Yeah, he's not that.
I feel like but I feel like a lot of the things that what do you call them when they they ask what can you the basic question is what are you going to do for the U.S. if you become president? A lot of the things that he says, I can kind of see Catholic in that, or maybe it's just the way that I perceive a Catholic as, especially the parts about, I will ban abortions or stuff like that. A lot of, I don't know. I just see Catholics as strict. I don't know why I see them like that, but.
So it's interesting that you raised some of those points, especially about, being pro-choice or not, or pro-abortion or whatever, because is that necessarily a part of the Catholic belief system, or is it more of a conservative political thought process? Because people get them mixed up. Like the Republican Party wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for conservatism as a way of thinking. It's a political ideology, and then the Republican Party kind of fits within that. So the conservative is the umbrella term, but you can have Republicans within that ideology. And then you can have other types of political parties too, but the two that we know of mostly in America are Dems and the Republicans. So again, the point is, if Trump isn't around here saying, I'm Catholic and because of my Catholic beliefs, X, Y, and Z, we attribute some of what he does and some of what he says to maybe the Catholic belief system, or is it really something else that is closely intertwined with it? Because when you have liberal politicians, that do things, nobody connects that to any kind of religion at all. It's usually, they're a liberal. That's it. So it's just interesting, It's just interesting. But, so, again, it's not really, even though we may look at religion as a part of the criteria that we assess when we're picking a political leader, I think it's less about religion and it's more about their morals. Because anybody can say they're something. I mean, President Obama, he said he was Christian, right? And I think most of us believed him. I mean, we don't have to see him going to church every Sunday. We did see him in church, though, right? So I'm in church sometime, and there was even that scandal with his, the pastor of the church that he had attended for quite some time. Anybody remember that?
No. What was his name? I think the name was Jeremiah or something.
I think it was Jeremiah something. I can't remember the pastor's name and exactly what he did, but he huh?
Oh no!
He said something that was I think racially charged.
Yeah.
And then people turned to look at Obama and said, "Hold up, wait, you go to this guy's church and he's saying stuff like that, and you're the president of the United States." And you know, a lot of people got on President Obama for not talking a lot about race relations and racial tensions in America.
Based on the black community, that's what they were trying to say.
They said what was based on the black community?
Like on the radio one day, they were saying that Obama did more so for the Caucasian community instead of for the African American community. More so.
Obamacare.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like, I really don't know. I feel like he did what he tried to do as a president for, the United States. So, yeah, I really wouldn't say, I wouldn't choose sides, basically. I mean, he tried his best.
Because his responsibility, I mean, if you want to just look at the Constitution, was to look out for all Americans first and foremost. Yeah. But then he had this extra pressure on him because he was a person of color. So there were other expectations too. They were more implicit because it wasn't a part of his official role. So I think that's fair too. So I'll just say that though. I think religion does play some kind of role when it comes to politics. It seems like we kind of agreed on that in this discussion. But there is some kind of delineation that happens. There is some kind of separation where religion is not allowed on the other side. It's not allowed into politics.
Way up, I feel blood. Way